The envelope was red. Not pink, not salmon, but the deep crimson of arterial blood, the kind Sofia Moretti had seen plenty of in restaurant kitchens when inexperienced line cooks got careless with knives. It sat on her apartment door like a warning, tucked into the crack between the frame and the cheap particle board that passed for security in a Sunset Park walkup. Sofia stared at it for a full 10 seconds before touching it, her grocery bag, containing a single can of soup and a loaf of day-old bread, hanging limp in her other hand. Red envelopes meant one of two things in her world: Valentine's Day promotions from restaurants desperate for business, or final notices from debt collectors who had exhausted their patience. Given that it was November, and she was 4 months behind on her father's medical bills, she knew which one this was. She unlocked her door, stepped into the studio apartment that smelled of mildew and the neighbor's weed, and dropped the grocery bag on the counter that also served as her dining table, desk, and prep station. The red envelope followed. She didn't open it. Not yet. She needed to sit down first. Sofia Moretti was 28 years old, and she was living in the margins of other people's lives. By day, she worked the prep shift at Osteria Morini in SoHo, arriving at 6 a.m. to dice vegetables and portion proteins for chefs who would take credit for dishes she'd helped create. By evening, she worked the line at a bistro in the West Village, sweating through dinner service while entitled customers sent back perfectly cooked steaks because they were too rare at medium rare. By night, the shifts she could grab, she worked at Lucia's in Red Hook, a dying Italian restaurant where the owner, Marco, paid her under the table and let her take home leftovers. 3 jobs, 70-hour weeks. And still, she was drowning in the debt her father's lung cancer had left behind like a toxic inheritance. She opened the red envelope. Final notice. Payment required within 72 hours or legal action will commence. $3,200 due immediately. Another $43,800 in total debt stretched behind it like a shadow she could never outrun. Sofia set the notice down and pressed the heels of her palms against her eyes until she saw stars. Her phone buzzed. A text from Marco. Need you tonight. Emergency catering job. Cash. Good money. You in? Sofia didn't hesitate. Yes. What time? Car picking you up at 8. Where your chef whites? Private client. Very private. Don't ask questions. She looked at the clock. 6:47 p.m. Just over an hour to shower, change, and make herself look like a professional instead of the exhausted, debt-ridden ghost she'd become. Address. Driver knows. Sofia, be on your best behavior. This client is important. Understand? The phrasing sent a small chill down her spine. In Brooklyn, important usually meant connected. Mob. Mafia. The kind of people who appeared in headlines when someone turned up in the Gowanus Canal wearing concrete shoes. But $3,200 was $3,200. And Sofia had learned that survival didn't leave much room for ethics. Understood, she typed back. The car that arrived at 8:04 p.m. was not a car. It was a vehicle, a black SUV with windows tinted so dark they looked like sheets of obsidian. The driver who stepped out was 6.5 feet of solid muscle poured into an expensive suit, with a face that suggested he'd been a boxer in a previous life and had lost more fights than he'd won. Sofia Moretti. His voice was a rumble, like rocks grinding together. That's me. He opened the rear door. The interior smelled of leather and money. Get in. Sofia climbed into the SUV, clutching her knife roll, the one possession she owned that was worth more than everything else in her apartment combined. The door shut with the heavy thunk of German engineering. The driver got in, and they pulled away from the curb without another word. They drove for 20 minutes, crossing the Brooklyn Bridge into Brooklyn Heights, winding through streets that got progressively quieter and wealthier until they pulled up to a building that looked like it had been transplanted from Milan. Doorman. Marble lobby. The kind of place where the monthly HOA fees exceeded Sofia's annual salary. Top floor, the driver said, handing her a key card. Penthouse. Service elevator is to the left. You're expected. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. Sofia took the key card with trembling fingers. What exactly am I cooking? The driver looked at her in the rearview mirror. His eyes were flat, emotionless. Whatever you're told to cook. And Ms. Moretti, Mr. Santoro values discretion. You see nothing. You hear nothing. You say nothing. Capice? Capice, Sofia whispered. She rode the service elevator up 32 floors, her heart hammering against her ribs. The doors opened directly into a kitchen that made her breath catch. It was a cathedral of culinary perfection. Sub-zero refrigerator, wolf range with 8 burners, marble countertops that gleamed under recessed lighting. This was the kind of kitchen she dreamed about when she was 18 and stupid enough to believe culinary school would lead somewhere other than crippling debt. A woman stood waiting. Mid-50s, gray hair pulled into a severe bun, wearing scrubs. A nurse. You're the chef, the woman said. Not a question. Yes. Sofia Moretti. I'm Elena. Follow me. And keep your voice down. Mrs. Santoro is sleeping, but she wakes easily. Sofia followed Elena through the penthouse. Even in her panic, she registered the details. Original artwork on the walls, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Manhattan skyline, furniture that belonged in museums. This wasn't wealth. This was power. They stopped outside a closed door. Elena's expression softened, the professional mask slipping to reveal something that looked like grief. Mrs. Santoro is dying, Elena said quietly. Pancreatic cancer. Days left, maybe hours. She hasn't eaten in 2 weeks. She's been on 4 nutrition, but her body is shutting down. She paused. This morning, she woke up and said she was hungry. She asked for her mother's pasta. Homemade, the way it tasted when she was a girl in Naples. Sofia's throat tightened. And you called me because Mr. Santoro tried every high-end Italian restaurant in the city. He had their best chefs prepare meals. She took 1 bite of each and pushed them away. She said they tasted like nothing, like expensive air. Elena looked at Sofia with desperate eyes. Marco said you're the real thing. That you cook like someone's nana. That you cook with soul. I cook with whatever ingredients I can afford, Sofia said honestly. Then cook with these. Elena opened the door. The bedroom was dim, filled with a quiet beeping of medical equipment. A woman lay in the bed, so thin she barely made an impression beneath the covers. But it was the man sitting beside the bed who stole Sofia's breath. He was tall. She could tell even with him sitting down. Dark hair, sharp features, wearing a white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms corded with muscle. He didn't look at Sofia when she entered. His attention was focused entirely on the woman in the bed, his hand holding hers with a gentleness that seemed at odds with everything else about him. Mr. Santoro, Elena said softly. The chef is here. He turned, and Sofia felt the full weight of his gaze. His eyes were dark, nearly black, and they assessed her with an intensity that made her feel like every secret she'd ever kept was written on her skin. You're younger than I expected, he said. His voice was deep, controlled, with the faint remnant of an accent that suggested he'd worked hard to smooth it away. I'm good at what I do, Sofia replied, lifting her chin. She'd learned early in kitchens that showing fear invited cruelty. We'll see. He stood, and yes, he was tall, at least 6'3". He gestured to a small sitting area near the window. Tell me what you need. Sofia set down her knife roll and pulled out her phone, opening the notes app where she kept recipes. What exactly did she ask for? Her mother's pasta. She said it was simple. Red sauce. Fresh pasta. Maybe braciole. The way it tasted in Naples before the war, before they came to America, before everything got complicated. Sofia nodded slowly, the pieces falling into place. Comfort food. Soul food. Not fancy. Not elaborate. Just honest. Yes. Something flickered in his expression. Can you do that? I can try. I'll need. Cost is irrelevant. Tell Elena what you need. She'll have it brought up from the market downstairs, or delivered within the hour. Anything. Everything. Sofia took a breath. I'll need Samarzano tomatoes. Fresh, if possible, but good can will work. Fresh pasta. I can make it, but I'll need 00 flour eggs. Garlic, basil, good olive oil. For the braciole, thin-cut beef, top round or bottom round. Breadcrumbs, parsley, pecorino romano, not parmigiano. And, she hesitated, and, Time. I can't rush this. Food like this, it needs to cook slowly. The flavors need to develop. If you want it to taste like memory, I need at least 3 hours. Dominic Santoro looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. You have 4 hours. After that, he glanced at the bed. After that, it might not matter. Elena left to arrange for ingredients. Sofia was left alone with the man and his dying mother. She stood awkwardly, unsure of the protocol for this situation. Was she supposed to leave? Stay? Introduce herself to an unconscious woman? My mother's name is Maria, Dominic said, as if reading her mind. He sat back down in the chair beside the bed. She was born in Naples in 1952. She came to America when she was 19, married my father a year later. She worked 3 jobs to keep us fed while my father built his business. The pause before business was heavy with meaning. She sounds strong, Sofia offered. She was stronger than all of us. He touched his mother's hand. She deserved better than this. Better than me. Sofia didn't know what to say to that, so she said nothing. Silence, she'd learned, was often the kindest response. The ingredients arrived in waves, first the produce, then the meat, then the specialty items. Sofia set up in the kitchen, laying out her knives with the precision of a surgeon preparing for an operation. She tied her hair back, washed her hands 3 times, and began. She started with the sauce because sauce needed time. She hand-crushed the San Marzano tomatoes, feeling the flesh give way beneath her fingers, releasing seeds and juice. She minced garlic until it was nearly a paste, sliced basil into thin ribbons, measured olive oil by eye and instinct rather than measuring spoons. The pot she chose was copper, old, well-seasoned. She heated the oil, bloomed the garlic until it was golden and fragrant, then added the tomatoes. The sizzle filled the kitchen, and Sofia felt something in her chest loosen. This, at least, she understood. This made sense. While the sauce simmered, she made the pasta dough. 4 eggs, 2 cups of 00 flour, a pinch of salt. She mixed it by hand, feeling the texture change as she needed, the dough transforming from shaggy and rough to silky and elastic. She wrapped it in plastic and let it rest while she prepared the braciole. Thin slices of beef, pounded thinner still. A mixture of breadcrumbs, parsley, garlic, pecorino romano, salt, and pepper spread across each slice. She rolled them tightly, secured them with toothpicks, browned them in olive oil until they were dark and caramelized, then added them to the sauce to braise. The smell began to fill the penthouse. Tomatoes and garlic and browning meat and fresh basil. It was the smell of Sunday dinners and grandmother's kitchens, and a version of home that existed more in memory than reality. Sofia rolled out the pasta, cut it into pappardelle, wide ribbons that would catch the sauce. She hung them on a makeshift drying rack, made from a wooden spoon balanced across 2 mixing bowls. 3 hours and 47 minutes after she'd started, Sofia plated the food. Pappardelle with the long-simmered sauce, 2 pieces of braciole, a sprinkle of freshly grated pecorino romano, a chiffonade of basil that looked like green confetti. She carried the plate into the bedroom on a tray, her hands steady despite her racing heart. Maria Santoro was awake. Her eyes, sunken, yellowed with jaundice, tracked Sofia's movement across the room. "Who?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. "This is the chef, Mama," Dominic said, standing. He took the tray from Sofia and set it on the bedside table. "She made your Nana's pasta." "Impossible," Maria breathed. "Nana's dead. The recipe died with her." "Taste it," Dominic urged, his voice breaking on the words. "Please, Mama. Try." Elena helped prop Maria up with pillows. Dominic held out a forkful of pasta, cooling it with his breath the way you would for a child. Maria took the bite. She chewed slowly, her eyes closed. A tear slid down her papery cheek. "It's hers," she whispered. "It's Nana's. How did you—" But Dominic wasn't listening to his mother anymore. He had picked up the fork and taken a bite himself, and Sofia watched as the most powerful man she'd ever encountered simply broke. His face crumpled. The fork clattered to the floor. He made a sound, a raw, wounded noise that came from somewhere deep in his chest, and then he was falling. Not fainting, but collapsing as if his legs had simply given up the task of holding him upright. He went down hard, his knees hitting the hardwood floor with a crack that made Sofia wince. His hands came up to cover his face, and his shoulders shook with sobs that sounded like they were being torn out of him. Sofia stood frozen, horrified, unsure whether she should help or leave or apologize or— "Domenico," Maria said, her voice stronger than it had been in days. "Domenico, bambino." But he couldn't stop. He knelt on the floor beside his mother's bed, crying with the abandon of a child, the carefully constructed walls of his control demolished by a plate of pasta that tasted like a childhood he thought was gone forever. Elena looked at Sofia, her eyes wide. "What did you put in that sauce?" "Nothing," Sofia whispered. "Just tomatoes, garlic, basil, love." She watched Dominic Santoro cry into his dying mother's blankets, watched Maria stroke his hair with trembling fingers, and realized with dawning horror that she had done something irreversible. She had reached into this man's chest and torn open wounds he'd spent decades sealing shut, and somehow she knew her life would never be the same. Maria Santoro died 43 hours after tasting Sofia's pasta. She passed quietly in her sleep, with Dominic holding one hand and Elena holding the other. Her last words, spoken in a moment of clarity the afternoon before, were, "Tell the girl, tell the chef, she gave me back my mother. Tell her thank you." Sofia learned this 3 days later when the same black SUV appeared outside her apartment building at 6 a.m., idling at the curb like a predator waiting for prey. She was walking to the subway, heading to her prep shift at Osteria Morini, when the driver, the same mountain of a man who'd brought her to the penthouse, stepped out and blocked her path. "Ms. Moretti, Mr. Santoro requests your presence." Sofia's stomach dropped. She'd spent the last 72 hours trying to forget the image of Dominic Santoro on his knees, sobbing like a broken child. She convinced herself it was over, that whatever strange intersection of her life and his had occurred was finished. "I have work," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Mr. Santoro is aware. He's arranged for your absence. Get in the car, please." It wasn't a request. Sofia looked at the subway entrance, then at the SUV, and made a calculation. You didn't say no to men like Dominic Santoro. Not if you wanted to keep breathing. She got in the car. They drove to a restaurant in Dumbo, Celestina, a Michelin-starred Italian place that had been closed to the public for the morning. The maitre d' unlocked the door when they arrived, nodding to Sofia's driver with the deference of someone who knew exactly who he worked for. "Upstairs," the driver said. "Private dining room." Sofia climbed the stairs, her heart hammering. The private dining room was elegant. Exposed brick, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the East River, a single table set for two. Dominic Santoro sat at the table, wearing a black suit that probably cost more than Sofia's annual salary. He looked different than he had 3 nights ago. Composed. Controlled. The tears were gone, replaced by the hard edges of a man who'd reassembled himself into something functional. But his eyes still carried the weight of what she'd witnessed. "Sit," he said. Sofia sat. A waiter appeared from nowhere, pouring espresso into delicate cups. He disappeared just as quickly, leaving them alone. "My mother died," Dominic said without preamble. "I'm sorry for your loss." "Don't be." She was in pain. Death was a mercy. He took a sip of espresso. "You gave her something I couldn't. Peace. A good memory before the end. For that, I owe you a debt." Sofia's mouth went dry. "You paid me. We're square." "No." The word was absolute. "You weren't paid for what you did. You were paid for your time. What you gave my mother, what you gave me, that's priceless. And I don't leave debts unpaid." He slid an envelope across the table. Not red this time. Cream-colored, expensive stock. "What is this?" "Open it." Sofia opened the envelope with trembling fingers. Inside was a check. She looked at the amount and felt the room tilt. $50,000. This is too much." "I can't. It's not enough," Dominic interrupted. "But it's a start. That check will clear your father's medical debts. All of them. You'll have money left over to stabilize your life. Pay rent in advance. Buy decent equipment. Breathe." Sofia stared at the check, then at him. "Why?" "Because you gave my mother her last happy moment. Because you did it with nothing but skill and heart. Because—" He stopped, his jaw tightening. "Because you saw me at my weakest and you didn't flinch. You didn't judge. You just stood there and let me break." I didn't know what else to do. Exactly. He leaned forward. I'm going to make you an offer, Sofia Moretti. You can refuse, but hear me out first. Sofia nodded, not trusting her voice. I want you to cook for me. Not occasionally. Permanently. I'll pay you $120,000 a year, plus benefits, plus housing. You'll have your own kitchen. I'm buying a restaurant space in Carroll Gardens. You'll design the menu. Hire your own staff. It'll be a legitimate business, fully legal, paying taxes. But your primary responsibility will be cooking for me. Private dinners. The kind of food you made for my mother. Real food. Honest food. Sofia's mind reeled. $120,000. Plus housing, he repeated. There's an apartment above the restaurant. 2 bedrooms, renovated. It's yours if you want it. I don't understand. Why me? You could hire any chef in the city. I don't want any chef. His voice was hard. I want you. I want someone who cooks like my nana. Like my mother. Someone who understands that food isn't about Michelin stars or Instagram photos. It's about memory. Connection. Love. Sofia looked at the check in her hands. $50,000. Enough to erase the crushing weight that had been suffocating her for 2 years. And he was offering more. A salary that would let her live instead of just survive. A kitchen of her own. Freedom from the degrading scramble of 3 jobs and no future. What's the catch? She asked. Dominic smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. The catch is that you'll be associated with me. My world isn't clean, Sofia. I run legitimate businesses, yes, but I also operate in gray areas. I have enemies, people who would hurt anyone connected to me to get leverage. If you work for me, you become a target. That's the price. You're telling me this could be dangerous. I'm telling you I'll protect you. But yes, there's risk. There's always risk in my world. Sofia thought about her studio apartment with the broken heater. She thought about the prep shift waiting for her, dicing onions until her hands cramped. She thought about the debt collectors, and the red envelopes and the slow, grinding erosion of her soul. I'll do it, she said. Dominic's expression shifted, surprise, followed by something that looked almost like relief. You don't want time to think about it? I've been thinking about escape for 2 years. You're offering me a lifeboat. I'd be an idiot to say no. You're not an idiot. You're smart enough to be afraid. That's good. Fear keeps you sharp. He stood, extending his hand. Welcome to the organization, Chef Moretti. Sofia shook his hand. His grip was firm, warm, and she felt the calluses on his palm. Not a soft rich man's hands, but the hands of someone who'd worked, who'd fought, who'd built an empire from something harder than money. When do I start? Today. Tony will drive you to collect whatever you need from your apartment. You'll move into the space above the restaurant this afternoon. Tomorrow, we'll tour the kitchen and discuss the menu. And tonight, he paused. Tonight, you cook for me again. Just the 2 of us. I want to understand how you do what you do. The apartment above the restaurant in Carroll Gardens was a revelation. Hardwood floors, exposed brick, windows that actually opened, a bathroom with water pressure, and a kitchen with a gas range that didn't require percussive maintenance to ignite. Sofia stood in the empty space, her meager possessions, 2 suitcases and 3 boxes, piled near the door, and felt something dangerous bloom in her chest. Hope! The restaurant below was still under construction, but she could see the bones of it. A small space, maybe 30 seats, with an open kitchen where diners could watch the chefs work. It was perfect. It was impossible. It was hers. Ms. Moretti. Tony, the driver, appeared in the doorway. Mr. Santoro will arrive at 7 for dinner. He's requested you cook here, in your apartment, rather than at his penthouse. He thought you'd be more comfortable. Sofia checked her watch. 4 hours. Did he say what he wanted? Whatever you want to make. He trusts your judgment. After Tony left, Sofia unpacked her knives and surveyed the refrigerator. It had been stocked. Someone, probably Elena, had anticipated her needs. Fresh vegetables, quality meats, dairy, pantry staples. She could make anything. She decided on something simple. Cacio e pepe, cheese and pepper pasta. One of the most basic dishes in Roman cuisine, and one of the hardest to execute properly. It required perfect technique, precise timing, and an understanding of how pasta water and cheese could transform into a silky sauce rather than a broken, grainy mess. If Dominic wanted to understand how she cooked, this would show him. No hiding behind complex sauces or expensive ingredients. Just skill. At 6:45, she started boiling water. At 6:58, she heard footsteps on the stairs. At 7 o'clock exactly, Dominic knocked. He changed from a suit into dark jeans and a simple black sweater. He looked younger without the armor of expensive tailoring, more human, though no less dangerous. "Come in," Sofia said, suddenly aware that she was wearing the same clothes she'd worn that morning, jeans and a flannel shirt that had seen better days. "I'm almost ready. Take your time." He sat at the small dining table she'd set up near the window. "Can I watch?" "If you want." She dropped the spaghetti into the boiling water. While it cooked, she toasted black peppercorns in a dry pan until they were fragrant, then ground them coarsely. She grated pecorino romano into a bowl, added a ladleful of starchy pasta water, and began whisking, creating a paste. The timing was critical. She tasted the pasta, almost there. Another 30 seconds. She drained it, reserving more pasta water, then tossed the pasta in the pan with the pepper. She added the cheese paste, tossing constantly, adding pasta water drop by drop until the sauce came together, glossy, creamy, coating each strand. She plated it simply. 2 portions. No garnish. No fuss. Dominic took a bite. His eyes closed. "It's perfect," he said quietly. "How do you do that?" "Do what?" "Make something so simple taste like it matters." Sofia sat down across from him. "Because it does matter. Food is how we take care of each other, how we show love when we don't have words. My father taught me that." "Tell me about him." So she did. She told him about Francesco Moretti, a mechanic from Naples who'd immigrated to Brooklyn in the 80s, who'd worked 3 jobs to send her to culinary school, who'd gotten sick and hidden it until it was too late because he didn't want to burden her with medical bills he couldn't pay. "He died 2 years ago," Sofia said, surprised by how steady her voice was. "Left me with $50,000 in debt and a box of his mother's recipe cards. I was angry at him for a long time, for not telling me, for not letting me help. And now I understand. He was trying to protect me. Parents do that. They carry weight so their children don't have to." She looked at Dominic. "Like your mother. She knew what you were, what you did, but she loved you anyway." Dominic set down his fork. "She deserved better than me. She thought you deserved better than what you became." The words hung between them, dangerous and true. Dominic could have been angry, should have been angry. Instead, he laughed, a short, bitter sound. "You're either very brave or very stupid. Probably stupid. I took a job with a mobster. I prefer entrepreneur with flexible ethics." Sofia smiled despite herself. They finished eating in comfortable silence. When the plates were empty, Dominic helped her clear the table, an act so unexpected that Sofia nearly dropped a bowl. "You don't have to. My mother raised me to clean up after myself," he said. "Some habits stick." They washed dishes together, and Sofia became acutely aware of how small her kitchen was, how close Dominic was standing, how the sleeve of his sweater brushed against her arm as he dried a plate. "Sofia," he said quietly, "I need you to understand something." She turned off the water, drying her hands. "The protection I offered is real, but it comes with rules. You don't go anywhere without Tony or one of my men. You don't talk to strangers about where you work or who you work for. You see something suspicious, you report it immediately. And if I tell you to do something, anything, for your safety, you don't argue. You just do it. You're scaring me." "Good. You should be scared. Scared keeps you alive." He turned her to face him, his hands on her shoulders. "I lost my mother 3 days ago. I'm not losing you too." The intensity in his voice made Sofia's breath catch. "You barely know me. I know enough. I know you're talented and brave and kind. I know you gave my mother peace. I know that when you cook, you put your whole heart into it." His thumbs traced small circles on her shoulders. "And I know that I haven't felt anything in years except anger and obligation. Until you." "Dominic, I'm not asking for anything," he said quickly. "I'm just telling you the truth. You matter to me, which means keeping you safe matters to me." So please follow the rules. For my sanity, if nothing else. Sofia nodded, not trusting her voice. He released her shoulders and stepped back, putting professional distance between them again. I'll have Tony pick you up tomorrow at 9. We'll tour the restaurant space, meet with the contractor. You can start planning your menu. Okay. He walked to the door, then paused. Thank you for dinner. It was exactly what I needed. After he left, Sofia sank onto the couch, her hands trembling. She touched her shoulders where his hands had been, still feeling the warmth of his grip. She was in trouble. Deep trouble. Because she just realized that Dominic Santoro wasn't just her employer. He was becoming something far more dangerous. He was becoming someone she could trust. The first threat came 6 days later. Sofia was at the restaurant, working with the contractor to finalize the kitchen layout, when Tony's phone buzzed. She watched his face change, from relaxed to alert in the space of a heartbeat. We need to leave, he said, already moving toward her. Now. What's wrong? Now, Ms. Moretti. He grabbed her arm, not roughly but firmly, and pulled her toward the back exit. Through the door. Into the alley, where the SUV was already waiting, engine running. They were inside and moving before Sofia could ask questions. What happened? Someone's been asking questions, Tony said, his eyes scanning the mirrors. About you. About where you live. About your connection to Mr. Santoro. Sofia's blood ran cold. Who? We don't know yet. But Mr. Santoro wants you at the penthouse until we identify the threat. They drove to Brooklyn Heights. Tony escorted her into the building, into the elevator, into the penthouse she'd only been in once before, when everything had started. Dominic was in his study, on the phone, speaking rapid Italian. When he saw Sofia, he ended the call abruptly. You're okay, he said, crossing to her. His hands framed her face, tilting it up, checking for injuries that weren't there. You're okay. I'm fine. Tony said someone was asking about me. Castellano family, Dominic said, his voice hard. One of my rivals. They figured out you're important to me. They think you're leverage. I'm not important. I'm just a chef. You're not just anything. His grip tightened slightly. You're under my protection. That makes you a target. I should have anticipated this. I should have been more careful. What do we do? You stay here. With me. Where I know you're safe. Sofia looked around the penthouse, the place where his mother had died, where she'd watched him break. For how long? Until I eliminate the threat. The way he said eliminate left no room for interpretation. Sofia shivered. I don't want anyone to die because of me. They won't die because of you, Dominic said. They'll die because they threaten what's mine. The possessiveness in his voice should have frightened her. Instead, it sent a different kind of shiver down her spine. I'll make dinner, Sofia said, needing something to do with her hands, needing to feel useful. Do you have groceries? Dominic smiled, the tension in his face easing slightly. I'll have anything you need delivered within the hour. That night, Sofia cooked in Dominic's kitchen while 2 armed guards stood watch in the hallway outside. She made osso buco, letting the veal shanks braise for hours until the meat fell off the bone. She made risotto Milanese, stirring constantly, adding stock ladle by ladle until the rice was creamy and perfect. They ate at the table where his mother had died, and neither of them mentioned the elephant in the room. That Sofia was essentially a prisoner, that men with guns were protecting her, that someone out there wanted to hurt him. Tell me about the restaurant, Dominic said, twirling risotto on his fork. What's your vision? So Sofia told him. She described a small neighborhood place, unpretentious but excellent. A menu that changed with the seasons. Dishes that honor tradition while leaving room for creativity. A place where people came not to be seen but to eat, to connect, to remember what it felt like to be nourished. It sounds perfect, Dominic said. When can we open? If construction stays on schedule, 3 months. I'll make sure it stays on schedule. They finished dinner. Sofia started to clear the plates, but Dominic stopped her. Leave them. I have staff who'll handle it. I don't mind, Sofia. He caught her hand. You're not the help. You're something else entirely. She looked at their joined hands. His fingers were long, strong, scarred across the knuckles. What am I, Dominic? He stood, pulling her up with him. They were close now, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and understated, cedar and bergamot. "You're the person who makes me remember I'm human," he said quietly. "You're the person who gave my mother peace. You're the person I think about when I wake up and when I go to sleep and every moment in between. Dominic, I know I shouldn't feel this way. I know I'm your employer. I know I'm dangerous and that you should run as far from me as possible. But Sofia," his hand came up to cup her face, "I can't let you go. I won't." Sofia knew she should step back, should maintain boundaries, should remember that this man was a criminal, that his world was violence and corruption, that getting involved with him was the stupidest thing she could possibly do. But when he kissed her, slow and deep and devastating, she didn't step back. She stepped closer, and in doing so, sealed her fate. The war started over a plate of carbonara. Sofia had been living in Dominic's penthouse for 2 weeks, existing in a strange limbo between house arrest and domesticity. She cooked. He worked. They ate dinner together every night, the meals stretching longer as conversation deepened. He told her about his father's empire, about the choices that had led him here. She told him about culinary school, about the dreams she'd abandoned, about the weight of her father's death. They hadn't kissed again since that first night, though the tension between them was thick enough to cut with a knife. On the 14th night, Sofia made carbonara. Real carbonara, guanciale, not bacon, pecorino romano, not parmesan, eggs whisked with pasta water until they formed a sauce that coated each strand like silk. Dominic took one bite and closed his eyes. "This is dangerous. It's just pasta." "No." He opened his eyes, looking at her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "You're dangerous. You make me want things I can't have." "What things?" "A normal life. Sunday dinners. A future that doesn't end in blood." Sofia set down her fork. "Dominic!" His phone buzzed. He ignored it. It buzzed again. And again. He answered it with a snarl. "What?" Sofia watched his expression change, from annoyance to fury to something cold and deadly. "When?" he asked. A pause. "How many casualties?" Another pause. "I'm on my way." He ended the call and stood, his body rigid with controlled violence. "I have to go." "What happened?" "The Castellanos hit one of my warehouses in Red Hook. 3 of my men are dead. 2 more critical." He was already moving, grabbing his jacket, checking the gun holstered at his hip. "Tony will stay with you. Marco and Luca are downstairs. Don't open the door for anyone but me." "Dominic, wait!" He crossed back to her in 3 strides, cupped her face, and kissed her hard. "Stay here. Stay safe. I'll be back by morning." Then he was gone, and Sofia was alone with half-eaten carbonara and the taste of his fear on her lips. Dominic didn't come back by morning. Tony received updates via text. Terse, coded messages that meant nothing to Sofia but made the bodyguard's jaw tighten progressively with each ping. "Is he okay?" Sofia asked for the 5th time. "He's fine, Miss Moretti." "You're lying." Tony looked at her, something like sympathy crossing his granite features. "He's handling it." At 2 p.m. Elena arrived with medical supplies and a grim expression. She set up a makeshift triage area in the guest bedroom without explaining why. At 4:30 p.m. Sofia heard the elevator. She ran to the door, then stopped. Tony had moved to block her path, his hand on his weapon. "Wait," he said. The door opened. Dominic walked in, flanked by 2 men Sofia didn't recognize. He was upright, walking. But his white shirt was no longer white, it was stained rust red across the right side, and his face was the color of old parchment. "Oh my God!" Sofia breathed. "It's not as bad as it looks," Dominic said, his voice strained. Then his knees buckled. Tony caught him before he hit the floor. "Elena!" The next 20 minutes were chaos. Elena barking orders. Tony and the other men carrying Dominic to the guest bedroom. Sofia hovering uselessly in the doorway until Elena snapped at her. "Either help or get out." "Which is it?" Sofia stepped forward. "Tell me what to do." She held pressure on the wound. A bullet grazed across Dominic's ribs, deep enough to bleed profusely but not deep enough to hit anything vital, while Elena prepared a suture kit. She helped cut away his shirt, helped clean the wound, helped hold him still when Elena started stitching and he tried to sit up. Sofia, he mumbled, his pupils dilated from whatever painkiller Elena had given him. You shouldn't see this. Too late. She smoothed his hair back from his forehead. His skin was clammy, cold with shock. Stay still. Let Elena work. The carbonara, he said. Did you finish it? What? The carbonara. I didn't finish. Was rude. Mama would have been angry. You can finish it when you're better, Sofia said, her throat tight. I'll make it again. Promise. I promise. He smiled, loopy from drugs, and then passed out. Elena finished the stitches, bandaged the wound, and set up in for a drip. He needs to rest. No moving for at least 48 hours. I'll stay tonight to monitor him. Sofia nodded, unable to look away from Dominic's face. In sleep, the hard edges softened. He looked younger, vulnerable. Ms. Moretti, Elena said quietly, you should get some rest too. I'm staying here. It's not appropriate. I'm staying. Elena looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. I'll bring you a pillow. Sofia spent the night in a chair beside Dominic's bed, watching the rise and fall of his chest, counting each breath like a prayer. He woke at dawn, disoriented and in pain. His hand reached out instinctively, and Sofia caught it. I'm here, she said. His eyes focused on her. You stayed. Of course I stayed. Sofia. He tried to sit up and immediately regretted it, hissing in pain. Don't move. Elena said. Forget what Elena said. He managed to prop himself up on pillows, his face pale but determined. We need to talk. You need to rest. I need you to listen. He gripped her hand tighter. Last night, the Castellanos sent a message. They know you're here. They know what you mean to me. They won't stop until they use you to get to me. Sofia's blood ran cold. What are you saying? I'm saying this was a mistake. Bringing you into my world. Keeping you close. I was selfish. I wanted you near me, and I didn't think about the consequences. He looked away. You need to leave. Today. I'll set you up somewhere safe. New city. New identity. Enough money to start over. You'll be free. Free. Sofia stared at him. You think I want to be free of you? You should. I'm poisoned, Sofia. Everything I touch turns to violence and ash. My mother died in this apartment. I almost died last night. How long before it's you lying in that bed? How long before my enemies figure out the fastest way to destroy me is to hurt you? So you're sending me away. I'm letting you go before it's too late. Sofia pulled her hand from his grasp and stood. She walked to the window, looking out at the city waking up. Cars on the bridge, boats on the East River, the ordinary world going about its ordinary business, oblivious to the drama playing out 32 floors above. I watched my father die slowly, she said, her back to Dominic. Lung cancer. They said he had 6 months. He had 11. Every day, he got a little weaker. A little more transparent. Toward the end, he couldn't even hold a fork. I had to feed him. She turned to face him. You know what he said to me the day before he died? He said, Sophie, don't be afraid to love someone just because you might lose them. The losing is guaranteed. Everyone dies. But the loving, that's the only thing that makes the dying worth it. Dominic stared at her, his expression unreadable. I'm not leaving, Sofia said. Not because you pay me. Not because I'm trapped. But because I choose to stay. I choose you. Even knowing what you are. Even knowing the risks. I choose this. You're insane. Probably. She walked back to the bed and sat on the edge of it, careful not to jostle him. But I'm also a really good cook, and you need someone to make sure you eat something other than takeout while you recover. So you're stuck with me. Dominic reached up and cupped her face, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. I could order you to leave. You could try. Sofia, I love you, she said, the words spilling out before she could stop them. I know it's stupid and reckless, and we've only known each other a few weeks, but I love you. So unless you're going to have Tony physically remove me from this apartment, I'm staying. For a long moment, Dominic didn't speak. Then he pulled her down into a kiss that was gentle despite the intensity behind it, mindful of his injuries but desperate all the same. I love you too, he whispered against her lips. God help us both, but I love you. The retaliation was swift and brutal. Dominic, despite his injury, orchestrated the response from his bed, his laptop open, phone constantly ringing. Sofia listened to him speak in code, watched him move pieces on a chessboard she couldn't fully see. The Castellanos have a shipping operation in Staten Island, he explained to her between calls. That's where their real money comes from. We're going to burn it to the ground. Metaphorically, he added, seeing her expression. We're freezing their accounts, turning their suppliers against them, cutting off their distribution network. By the end of the week, they'll be bleeding money, so fast they'll beg for a truce. And if they don't beg? Dominic's expression hardened. Then we move to less metaphorical measures. 3 days later, Dominic was on his feet again, moving stiffly but refusing to stay in bed. Tony drove them to a warehouse in Sunset Park. Neutral territory, he explained, for a meeting. You're not coming in, Dominic told Sofia as they pulled up to the building. Then why did you bring me? Because I'm not letting you out of my sight until this is resolved. But that doesn't mean I'm letting you walk into a negotiation with men who'd slit your throat to make a point. He kissed her forehead and got out of the car. Sofia watched through the tinted windows as he walked into the warehouse, flanked by Tony and 3 other men. 20 minutes passed. 30. Sofia's anxiety ratcheted higher with each minute. Then she saw movement. A car, a black sedan she didn't recognize, pulled up to the side entrance of the warehouse. 3 men got out. Even from this distance, she could see the guns. Her blood froze. This wasn't part of the plan. This was an ambush. She grabbed Tony's phone from the center console. He'd left it when he went inside with Dominic, and called the only other number she had memorized. Marco, one of Dominic's lieutenants. Tony's phone, Marco answered, suspicious. It's Sofia. Listen to me. 3 armed men just entered the warehouse through the side entrance. It's a trap. Dominic's inside. A pause. Then, stay in the car. Lock the doors. I'm 2 minutes out. The next 90 seconds were the longest of Sofia's life. She heard gunfire, muffled by the warehouse walls but unmistakable. She saw people running. She saw one of Dominic's men stumble out, clutching his shoulder, blood streaming between his fingers. Then she saw Dominic. He was limping, his shirt torn, blood, fresh blood, seeping through the bandages on his ribs. Tony was supporting him on one side, half carrying him toward the SUV. Sofia threw open the door and ran to him, ignoring every instinct screaming at her to stay in the car where it was safe. I told you to stay, Dominic started. Shut up. Get in the car. They piled into the SUV. Tony floored it, tires screaming. Sofia pressed her scarf against Dominic's ribs, trying to staunch the bleeding where his stitches had torn open. You reopen the wound, you idiot, she said, tears streaming down her face. Elena's going to kill you. I'm going to kill you. Not if the Castellanos get to me first, Dominic said, then winced. That was supposed to be a negotiation. What happened? They brought guns to a parley, violated every rule of engagement. He looked at her, his face gray with pain. This doesn't end with a truce, Sofia. It ends with one of us dead. They made it back to the penthouse. Elena was furious, restitching Dominic's wounds with more force than strictly necessary while lecturing him about his stupidity. Sofia hovered nearby, feeling useless and terrified. After Elena left, after Dominic was cleaned and bandaged and loaded with enough painkillers to drop a horse, Sofia climbed into the bed beside him. You can't keep doing this, she said, her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. You can't keep almost dying. I'm working on a solution. What kind of solution? The permanent kind. Sofia raised her head to look at him. Dominic, I'm not a good man, Sofia. I've done terrible things. Hurt people. Killed people. I'm not going to lie to you and pretend otherwise. He stroked her hair. But for you, I'll try to be better. I'll try to find a way out of this life that doesn't end with a bullet in my head. Promise me. I promise I'll try. That's all I can offer. It wasn't enough, but it was something. That night, Sofia couldn't sleep. She lay awake listening to Dominic breathe, thinking about bullets and blood and the very real possibility that she could lose him. At 3 a.m., she slipped out of bed and went to the kitchen. She needed to do something with her hands, needed to create something in a world that felt like it was falling apart. She made bread. Focaccia, specifically. She mixed flour and water and yeast and salt, kneading the dough until her arms ached, letting it rise, dimpling it with her fingers, drizzling it with olive oil and rosemary. While it baked, filling the apartment with the smell of yeast and herbs, she made a decision. When Dominic woke at dawn, he found her sitting at the kitchen table with a notebook and a determined expression. "What are you doing?" he asked, shuffling into the kitchen in sweatpants and a t-shirt, moving gingerly. "Making a plan." She turned the notebook around. "You want out of this life. I want you to survive it. So we're going to find a way to make both those things happen." Dominic looked at the notebook. She'd written names, connections, business holdings. She'd mapped out his empire like a battle plan. "Sofia, the restaurant," she said. "We open it. We make it legitimate, successful, profitable. You start transitioning your assets, sell the gray area businesses to your competitors, invest the money in legal ventures. It'll take time, maybe years, but we do it slowly, carefully. So when you finally step back, you're not leaving a power vacuum. You're retiring. The Castellanos won't let me retire, so we eliminate them first." She said it calmly, as if she were discussing a recipe. "You said you were working on a permanent solution. Work faster. End the threat. Then we build something new." Dominic stared at her. "You're serious. I'm not losing you to this. Not to the Castellanos, not to the next family who decides you're in their way, not to a stray bullet in a warehouse. So yes, I'm serious. We fight. We win. We survive. And then we live." He pulled her out of the chair and into his arms, mindful of his injuries but needing her close. "How did I get so lucky? You collapsed in front of me over a plate of pasta. That's not luck. That's fate. Then fate has a twisted sense of humor. Good thing I like twisted." The end came 3 weeks later, not with a bang but with a ledger. Dominic's forensic accountants, the legitimate kind, had been digging through the Castellano family finances. What they found was damning. Money laundering, tax evasion, fraud on a scale that had caught the attention of the FBI. "We could give them this," Dominic's lawyer said, sliding the file across the table during a meeting in Dominic's study. "Let the feds handle it. The Castellanos go to prison for 20 years. No blood. Clean hands." Dominic looked at Sofia, who was sitting in on the meeting at his insistence. "What do you think?" "I think your mother would prefer you build something rather than destroy something." He smiled. "Then we go with the legal route." 2 weeks after that, the FBI raided Castellano operations across the city. Arrests were made. Assets were seized. The family, already weakened by Dominic's financial attacks, collapsed like a house of cards. The war was over. 6 months later, Sofia stood in the kitchen of her restaurant. Nana's, she'd named it, in honor of the woman whose recipe had started everything, putting the final touches on the opening night menu. The dining room was full. Critics, food bloggers, neighborhood regulars who'd been watching the construction with interest. And at the corner table, the best table in the house, sat Dominic. He was wearing a suit, but he left the tie at home. He looked relaxed, happy, alive. Sofia plated the final dish of the evening, pappardelle with the sauce that had changed her life, the sauce that had brought a Mafia boss to his knees. She carried it out herself, setting it in front of him with trembling hands. "For you," she said. "The dish that started everything." Dominic took a bite, closed his eyes. When he opened them, they were wet. "It still tastes like home," he said. "That's because it is home," Sofia replied. She slid into the chair across from him. Us. This is home now." He reached across the table and took her hand. On her finger, a ring sparkled. Simple, elegant, a solitaire diamond that he'd given her 2 weeks ago when he'd asked her to marry him. "I love you, Sofia Moretti," he said. "I love you too, Dominic Santoro." Around them, the restaurant hummed with life. People eating, laughing, connecting over food. Outside, the Brooklyn streets were alive with the city's endless energy. And inside, 2 broken people who'd found each other over a plate of pasta sat holding hands, building a future out of the ashes of their past. It wasn't a fairy tale. There would be challenges ahead, old enemies, new threats, the slow work of building something legitimate from the ruins of an empire built on violence. But they had each other. They had this restaurant. They had food and love and the determination to survive. And sometimes that was enough. Sometimes That was everything. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you love this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.